Big thanks go out to Taiwa for supporting today's video via Patreon. Elsha Threefold Master versus Angry Omnath, Ulalek and Marcus. With a 2-lander we don't have all our colours. Ristic Study could help, but we're up against green players that could blow it up easily. That's a heavy hand, too heavy for my liking, too many useless cards. Let's mulligan. Into a 2-lander with a talisman, fixes our colours. Can get into our commander easily enough, so we will keep. Really like the Whirlwind of Thought as well, one of the best cards in Jeskai. Alright, we draw into another land, meaning we've got all our colours. I'll just get down the tapped Mystic Sanctuary here. And that means that we don't necessarily have to bolt this down for the talisman next turn, although we're likely going to play it as a land at some point. Speaking of lands, there is an Urza's Power Plant over here. We'll tap for 2 once the other Urza lands enter. And playing against Tarax, as we often do, who has brought a Marcus deck, plays Ochre Jelly, enters with 1+ counter on it, and when it dies, if it had 2 or more counters, create a token copy. Lightning Greaves and more colourless lands. A Cavern of Souls makes the Eldrazi uncounterable, as long as you put the coloured mana into them, which you can when you're paying the generic cost with Cavern of Souls. The colourless mana does not make it uncounterable. A Sylvan Library for Angry Omnath, and there's a Brotherhood Regalia, making our commander unblockable. We know what we're doing, getting down the talisman, and that means if we miss a land next turn, we can go for this in tapped so that we don't have to bolt it. Growing Rites of Itlimoc will see a creature on top most likely, but needs to see 4 creatures in play to turn into the Gaia's Cradle. Whiffs on the Growing Rites of Itlimoc, unfortunately, so just dumps the top 4 cards on the bottom of his library. Paying land for Ulalek, so plenty of colourless mana to be generated, as well as the actual colours. Sylvan Library with 7 cards in hand is triggering. They're at 40 life, of course. That is a promising vein. Sacrifice it to search for a basic, put it in tapped. Decided to take the 8 life, go up to 9 cards and down to 32, which allowed him into a Lotus Cobra before getting down a fetch land, I dare say. No, instead just a mountain. Might have another 2-drop here. Yep, that is 3 2-drops in a row for this player. A Druid class. Whenever a land enters under your control, gain a life. You can play an additional land if you level it up to level 2 for 3 mana. Okay, wow, a Smothering Tithe for us is actually probably worth taking a turn off for. We'll test our opponents on enchantment removal. So let's bolt this down. Priority being held up by Ulalek, so he might be able to just blow it up straight away now. So this hopefully means that we'll be able to go Elsha and protect it with the Brotherhood Regalia next turn, but it all depends on how many treasure we get from the Smothering Tithe. Seems as though Ulalek does not have removal for it, or at least decided not to use it. Pest Infestation, there we go, didn't last long, but wanted to test my opponents. The best case scenario, of course, is that we managed to have the Smothering Tithe stick and get some more mana, but instead encouraging my opponent to play a Pest Infestation here, so gets a couple of pests and blows up the enchantment. At least that's not going on the Whirlwind of Thought though. And it was an instant speed, Kozilek's Return, 2 damage to each creature, so that wipes out the pests straight away, as well as the Lotus Cobra. And that means that Elsha did not get blown up in that. So playing the Tithe was the right thing to do apparently. And then this is if they play a big Eldrazi, it deals 5 damage to each creature if they exile it, so we'll have to be wary of that. It's just another inevitable board wipe, a From Beyond this time, in order to get the Eldrazi Scion going. The 2 mana spells keep flowing for Omnath, a 3 visits this time. Gains a life from the Saga, or the class, whatever it is. After which, you'll never guess what CMC that is, an Impact Tremors, so we'll ping when the tokens enter, managing to keep a full grip. Alright, a Seething Song, so is our commander gonna survive is the question, because we just have to play it and not do anything else with it, because then hopefully we can do some stuff with Jeska's Will next turn. Yeah, if we got into a land there we could have made use of it and played some of our red and colourless spells, but anyway, didn't get into a land, so let's try our commander. Want to keep hold of the treasure, so I'm not going to play out the Regalia here, as long as Omnath continues to keep a full grip. Hopefully the Jeska's Will generate a good amount of mana for us. Evolution Witness really good in plus counter builds. Is it only permanents. Yeah, return a permanent from graveyard to hand, so can't get back the pest infestation, but the ooze can certainly come back. From Beyond makes the first Scion. Thran Dynamo for more ramp, and then deciding to put the Lightning Greaves on the Scion, so I'm assuming we won't see another creature here. Only 3 cards left in the Eldrazi player's hand. It might be that there's another board wipe next turn if he gets down some kind of Titan. Okay, and then the Eldrazi player scoops because it's Magic Online. Every single game we have to block somebody. Alright, and Angry Omnath's plummeted down to 18, so I'm probably not even going to show you this game because I imagine Omnath is going to realise how low his life total is in a minute and just scoop on us. He's got 9 cards in hand. That is an E-Witness, so we'll ping us when it enters and fetches back the Lotus Cobra probably. Maybe 3 visits, but no, it does go for the Snake. At least we don't have that Eldrazi board wipe to worry about. So, yep, does decide to play the Snake. Let's see what we can do here. He's still got the full grip with that Jeska's Will. Deflecting Swat is going to be useful most likely. Let's go straight into the Jeska's Will, hope we get some lands. And triggers Prowess for the first time on our Elsha. I've built this as like a Spellslinger type deck. I was going to do Storm originally, but Storm doesn't work with Prowess because you don't cast the copies that you make. So obviously you need to be casting into Prowess. That's a shame to lose the Haze of Rage because that's a combo with the Dwarf Token Generator. I'll get down the Command Tower for sure as our land for the turn. And then let's see about casting the Whirlwind of Thought, I think, which lets us cast Bergie, and then the Seething Song, and then it'll have to be Brotherhood Regalia, I think. We're just trying to look at as many cards as possible at this point. So, triggers Prowess, we get a mana from the Bergie, draw a card with the Whirlwind of Thought, and there's Raise the Palisade. We've got mostly monks in the list, or our commander and all the monks that it will make. So with 6 mana, we'll make more mana with Bergie, so let's just go for the Regalia now. And here's where we see how good the Whirlwind of Thought is, because we're going to look at lots of additional cards here. Really hope that that sticks in play. And Chaos Warp we could make use of. Equip a Legend for 1 mana, so Elsha. And then let's play this so it's in the bin, as opposed to being stuck in exile, because we might be able to combo off with it at some point. In fact, we could just buy it back here. I'm not going to go for the Will of the Jeskai, because deflecting Swat could be useful to us. So cast the Haze with buyback, puts it back into hand. And Haze of Rage does have Storm, one of the few Storm cards in the list, but it's good with our commander, as well as all the tokens. There's a Crimson Wisps as well, so we are storming off a little bit here. Our commander already, an 11-6. Play the Crimson Wisps simply to draw a card, might as well give the Bergie haste. And get into another 1-drop after making a mana with the Bergie, so we'll play the Wayfarer's Bauble as well. Slip Through Space is not going to be able to be cast thanks to the red mana we're making, but you get a good idea of how the deck wants to run. Don't have double strike on our commander yet, but there's a few means of doing that, and if we are able to get double strike, then that just one-shots a player. Yeah, so we've refilled our hand quite nicely. Let's go through to combat, hit the Angry Omnath player, and Bergie can just go to the left for the sake of spreading the damage. And so we've dealt 14 damage, which means we get a bunch of monk tokens, each with prowess. And there they are, same as the monk tokens from the Monastery Mentor, one of my pet cards. Pass the turn at that and see if anyone can do anything about this board. Unfortunately, the Fierce Guardianship did not make it into our hand. But if we don't do well for the rest of the game, then at least I got one decent turn. Adapt on the Evolution Witness. Brings back the Jelly. So Omnath has plummeted down to 14 thanks to being super aggressive with the Sylvan Library. He must have kept a pretty bad hand in which he needed to get into lands with this, but I mean, you could still draw a land and not take so much life. I think this is going to be a bit of a skewed game thanks to the scoop and the bad play with Sylvan Library. Him drawing in so many cards helped us with the Jeska's Will though. An Escape Tunnel being played now, so can search for a basic with that as well. And then Nature's Law, more ramp for our opponent. But if he doesn't manage to wipe the board with a Blasphemous Act or something here, then we're probably just going wide on all our opponents. Has leveled up the Druid class, so he's able to play another land. That is a Thawing Glaciers. Comes in tapped, so he can't make another land with that. He's slowly gaining life off the class though. He's up to 7 again. And Escape Tunnel, search for a basic, put it into play. Maybe Chain Reaction with 4 mana left. Instead it is Savage Twister, X damage to each creature. So instead of the deflecting swap, we certainly wanted to see the Fierce Guardianship there. We don't have that much counter magic in the deck, but it looks as though the board is successfully being reset. So let's see, that's good with all the tokens, which we don't have access to anymore. There's 1 or 2 Convoke spells in the list. Play our land for the turn. And we can't afford to go for our commander and crack the Wayfarer's Bauble, unfortunately. So it'll just have to be our commander into the Regalia. And we've still got a grip of 7, so missing haste, because I decided to just use the Crimson Wisps last turn. Maybe should have held on to that for such an occasion. But it's mana that we're lacking in this Jeskai list. Once you've played your Jeska's Wills and your Seething Songs, you might struggle on mana if you don't get into rocks and things. Anyway, there's a Dreamtide Whale, which is a 7/5. If you can proliferate the counters onto it, then it will stick in play. Sylvan Library continuing to reorganise the top 3 cards of the library. But us hitting him for so much means that he couldn't take the card advantage from this anymore, so his cards are starting to go down finally. Looks as though we might see the commander here. Can't point lightning bolts at Elsha too well, thanks to the Ward 2. So there's Angry Omnath. Couldn't hold up the mana for the Thawing Glaciers unless he has held a land in hand, which would make sense. We each get pinged by the Impact Tremors again, but decides to pass the turn, so doesn't have landfall for us. And there is a Snap, which is just a free spell for us here, very good with prowess. So yeah, just bouncing Angry Omnath would be an idea. Triggers the Whirlwind of Thought. Told you that was an all-star. If you haven't played with Whirlwind of Thought before, then hopefully this is proving to you why you probably should be. Scoops to the Angry Omnath getting bounced, so hopefully that doesn't fizzle our Snap. It does. That's why you don't play selfishly like that, because we should have had these 2 mana untapped. Hopefully it won't matter, because Terrax hasn't done too well here, unfortunately. Been screwed over by his opponents. Let's go Slip Through Space. Even though our commander's unblockable already, it will draw us a couple of cards. And that is our second spell, so the Dreamtide Whale gets another counter on it. Means it sticks around a bit longer. But we're just trying to buff Elsha up as much as possible here, really. Draw a couple of lands. So at this point, do we just go for Haze of Rage with buyback? I think that's fine. Draws us, triggers Prowess, and the Storm, like I said before, will not trigger Prowess, but we do get multiple buffs at least. So a last minute addition to the deck, simply for the combo, but it's actually panning out very well for us here. Buffs our commander up to a 7/4. Dousing Dagger is some of that ramp we wanted. Will cost us 4 mana for it, but probably worth the investment. So puts our opponent on a 3-turn clock, assuming that we can keep getting our commander up to 7 power. And now I'm not entirely sure about the Transcendent Message. It's a late game card anyway, but we can't pay for the blue with the tokens here, so we will need quadruple blue and then pay the X cost with the tokens. Not struggling to keep cards in hand anyway. So I think I'll actually give up on this, because we've got Will of the Jeskai in hand, although that might help our opponent as well. Get rid of a mountain as well. See how the game plays out. Fight rigging from the Simic player. He just can't get into the lands turn 8 now, and only has 3 lands, is pretty unlucky. But should be seeing the back of Terrax here, especially with all those tokens and a Haze of Rage available to us. Altered Ego is going to make a copy of the Dreamtide Whale. So we've got a 7/5 and a 9/7 version, and swings in with the 9/7. My issue with this thing, as good as it is, it doesn't have any kind of evasion. So just chump block here. And there's a Frantic Search, another untapped lands type thing, so it's effectively a free spell for us. Play the Bloodstained Mire and crack it straight away, get some more blue. Might as well play the Frantic Search in that case. It triggers all the prowess, and Whirlwind of Thought has been the all-star of the game. That's why I was glad that Smothering Tithe went down instead of the Whirlwind of Thought. Tested the waters with that Lightning Rod card and it actually worked out for us. There's a double strike effect, Rising of the Day, another double strike and indestructible effect in Boros Charm. Get rid of Raise the Palisade, deflecting SWAT hasn't done anything for us this game, so we'll get rid of that. Untap the lands. Play an equipped Dowsing Dagger, which triggers all the stuff again. Triggers the Dreamtide Whales to keep them in play for a turn longer as well. They're always going to get to see a second spell being played by us, with it being Spellslinger. So give our opponent more tokens to chump block with, but hopefully won't matter. Just going to take the ramp while we've got it. And then let's just go double strike onto the commander, followed by the Haze of Rage should do it. We won't bother with the buyback this time. But our token's being buffed up to 4/4s. Currently a 6/5 commander, so once it's doubled up to a 12/5, that is certainly enough commander damage. So we might as well actually not bother with the Haze of Rage, and hold up Boros Charm is going to be a good tactic. Swing in with everything, so hit with the first strike damage means that Dowsing Dagger will flip round before the double strike occurs, which is relevant in some instances because it could give you the additional mana. This flips round for 3 additional mana untapped, so you could get something like a Chaos Warp off the Dowsing Dagger. A little bit of tech that is worth knowing about. Could help you push through the damage that you need, especially as it will buff the tokens as well. But take our opponent down to -13. And that's that. Again, another bit of an exhibition match. This seems to be happening during this play session on Magic Online, but there's only so much we can do to keep players involved. So I'll upload this one and get another game in with Terrax now to make up for that train wreck of a game where you didn't really get to do much. Hopefully you all enjoyed Elsha Threefold Master. If you want to see more from it as ever, you must let me know in the comments. Massive thank you to the patrons, and hopefully I will see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.